right, we are live streaming the first ever episode issue of the Fantasy Federation show. What's going on? I'm Chris,
Matt.
and we're just two random dudes playing some fantasy football. All right, so we are in the middle of our Dynasty draft. We are sitting at round 3, and I am on the board. I have just under 4 hours left to make my pick. Third round, 5th pick in the third round, 25th overall. Let's do a quick recap. Let's take a look at who's been drafted so far. So, not surprisingly, Najee Harris went first overall, followed by Jamar Chase. In what was a little bit of a surprise to me, Kyle Pitts went third. I don't know how you feel about that, but I was a little bit surprised that he went that high.
I mean, Kyle Pitts is probably the best receiver in the draft, so he probably should have went third. So.
Fair enough. I had some pipe dream that he would fall to me at 5th.
Yeah, wishful thinking.
No shot that was ever going to happen. And that was kind of, 5th overall was what I saw a little bit of a cliff after that. I mean, ETN went 4th, so yeah, I almost got him, but there was no way he was going to fall out of the top 4. Neither was Kyle Pitts. I think your top 4 is pretty locked in there. And then Javonte Williams, I think, was the only real option left at 5th overall for me.
I mean, I had Javonte Williams above Etienne, so if that tells you anything.
I had Etienne above Javonte Williams, so
I understand that. I like Williams' situation. It might not be good this year because you still have Melvin Gordon, but I think in the long run, he's an explosive back, and he's going to take over the Broncos' backfield. There's no reason to pay that type of money to Melvin Gordon. He's just aging.
That's true. So. And, I like I said, I had Etienne above Javonte Williams, but Williams got some pretty high praise from LaDainian Tomlinson, who, in reviewing some of the rookie running back in this year's class, compared Javonte Williams to Alvin Kamara, which I was a little surprised by. I've actually seen comparisons of Etienne and Kamara, but I've never seen a comparison of Javonte Williams and Alvin Kamara. So to hear that from LaDainian Tomlinson was encouraging for me. I'm in desperate need of good running backs, so that was a big pickup, I think. After that, I think, is where you start seeing a pretty good decline. Jalen Waddle, I was a little surprised that Waddle went above Smith. Jalen Waddle going 6th overall.
I mean, just some context into that. That owner had Jalen Reagor, so he didn't want to double up with Devontae Smith. That's not always the best strategy, but that's what he wanted to do. So I think that's why Devontae Smith was picked later, and that's why he went with Waddle.
I see. That's not my strategy. I mean,
I know, but I mean that's some people's strategy.
Here we are talking strategies, and I don't really. I try not to pay too much attention to stacking players. If it's the best player, stack a player. I don't care if it's you're worried about the stack. It's the best player. I mean, I'm not going to pass up on a better player because I'm afraid of a stack.
I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I had Adam Thielen. I drafted Justin Jefferson last year
and that
1-9.
Worked out quite nicely.
I understand that.
Imagine if you seeing this, say, you know what, I don't want to stack receivers. I'm going to take someone else, and you pass up on Justin Jefferson. That would have been a big mistake. But it's not that I don't like Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's fine. He's probably going to have a good career in the NFL, but I don't like the quarterback situation in Miami. I'm not a Tua fan. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a great NFL quarterback. I don't even know that he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. So I stay away from Jalen Waddle. And for that same reason, I was a little bit skeptical on Smith as well because I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan. So here we are, 2 great receivers high up in the draft. And it was a no-brainer for me for Javonte Williams at that point just because I'm not going either of these guys. Just because of their quarterback situations. I know you were high on Rashad Bateman. He goes 8th overall. I know you were a little upset about that. So, this is a situation where the Ravens are, they revolve around the quarterback, but not in a passing way. I mean, they're not known for top 10 receivers. So
I agree But the reason why I like Bateman is because, back to our original point, he's just a better athlete. Now, was he necessarily in the best system? Maybe not, but that could have changed it because in my eyes, Jackson only has Mark Andrews as an outlet. I think Bateman is 100% an outlet type receiver, and he's just a freak athlete. So that's kind of why I wanted Bateman. Um, if you look at my roster, a lot of my guys are kind of receivers are kind of big possession guys anyway, and I feel like he kind of fits that mold. So, and he'd be a big red zone target. So that's kind of why I wanted Bateman. And then obviously, I mean, 8 probably made sense since it's just a one QB league. So it's no super flex. So I could see where Bateman would go 8, unless someone wanted to like reach for some of the later backs in the graph that I guess we'll see shortly. So,
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I mean, so that led me to Elijah Moore, which just goes back to the whole stacking thing. Last year, I drafted Denzel Mims in the second round, late second, and this year I was like, Elijah Moore is. I just think he's a great route runner, so I wanted him on my team. If I couldn't get Bateman, so I thought long and hard about Trey Sermon, Michael Carter. I thought those could be potential spots for me because everyone can literally use another back. But I was just going on who do I think will have the best career, and usually wide receivers have longer careers than running backs. And if I can't find a near home run, then I'd rather just go a higher end wide receiver. At least that's my thought. I don't know how you feel about it, but
Yeah, I would have taken Elijah Moore if he were there. He's not the biggest receiver by any means, which is kind of interesting. You see a lot of what you might call undersized, or at least not your prototypical big receivers in this class, and in the top of the receiver class for this year. So it's very interesting.
Which is why I wanted Bateman, because Bateman's your prototypical like NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, and then
but
you look at Devonta Smith, and he's not short, but he's obviously not the biggest guy, and that's one of the knocks.
Well, yeah, and Waddle's is smaller in height, so I don't know. I think Elijah Moore just going to be.
Well, we've heard great things out of camp so far. I mean, he seems to have great chemistry with the new quarterback in New York, and so we'll see. I would have taken him there as well, so I think that's definitely the right pick. And coming in after that, Terrace Marshall, who I think is a great option in Carolina. I was actually a little bit surprised he went there. I was upset that he went there because I had, again, a pipe dream that he would fall. To me, at 205, I did originally have the 205 pick, which I traded out of. So I think that was a great pick. And then we start seeing some of the other running backs go. So we see Trey Sermon go, and then Michael Carter. I'm a little bit surprised Trey Sermon went above Michael Carter, just because I think there's it's a little bit more straightforward in New York. Michael Carter's going to be the guy. He's going to get the carries. He's even going to snag some of the catches. Trey Sermon, we just don't really know what's up in San Francisco right now. We're looking at a new quarterback situation. We don't even know when that's going to happen. We don't know what they're going to do with Raheem Mostert. Is Raheem Mostert going to come into the season starting out as the number one guy? Who knows? I mean, it could be a committee again. We'll see. At least in the short term, not a bad pick by any means. I think I would have just gone with Carter above Trey Sermon there. What are you? Who would have you had first? Would you have had Carter or Sermon?
I was flipped on both of them because they both have two different situations. Like, I think Trey Sermon fits the San Francisco system very well. Like, you do have Raheem in front of him, but Raheem can't stay healthy. So
That's true.
I think Trey will definitely have a shot of, being able to be the lead back this year potentially. But it also feels like it's a revolving carousel door in San Francisco. But with that said, like, I think if Kyle Shanahan gets a key back, I think he would run with it. So we'll see if Trey gets that way. Michael Carter, I probably like him more, but he is, like, in my eyes, a little smaller back. So, I mean, he does have to compete with Tevin Coleman, but the same thing with Tevin Coleman. He's not the healthiest back. So he hasn't played a lot in the past. Well, I mean, he's played a decent amount, but he hasn't played a lot in the past 2 years.
Tevin Coleman's not a guy that I'm ever afraid of usurping carries.
I get that. I get that, but I could still think he's a good guy that's going to get 15 touches a game if he's healthy.
Well, we'll see. I
He's
mean,
definitely a changer back type.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, you might be right. Maybe Shanny sees a solid running back and he sticks with it. I mean, I think barring the injury to Mostert last year, I think he probably would have been a fairly clear cut number one. But again, he can't stay healthy, so a lot of people may look at that Trey Sermon pick and think, well, it's just a matter of time until Raheem Mostert goes down with another injury, and then it's Sermon time. So
Yeah. Also, Sermon doesn't have a lot of miles on him. Like he didn't play a lot. Like I mean, yeah, he had that was it LCL injury or some type of knee injury. Um, and he was battling back, but he was explosive at the end of last year for Ohio State. Like I saw him run. I think it was Clemson, right? He he just ran over them, and that's no. That's I'm not saying that's an NFL type defense, but that's probably one of the best defenses you're going to face in college football. And he ran over them like they were nothing. So I don't know. I still can't say which one I would have taken. Hence why I ended up with Elijah Moore.
well, I didn't have that issue because I had the 205 pick, and by that point they were both gone, as was Justin Fields. And I think if Justin Fields were there at 205, I wouldn't have traded out. I think I would have taken Justin Fields. I think he's pretty exciting. I love to watch the guy play. So we'll see.
I
Um,
mean, I kind of want to hear your opinion. Why do you like Justin Fields more than Trevor Lawrence?
I think from a fantasy perspective, I think Justin Fields might have a little bit more upside. That's not to speak of either who's going to be a better NFL quarterback. But I just see Justin Fields as, I don't know, he's more of a Dak Prescott for me. He's not really tall and lanky. I think he may be a little bit more mobile. But I liked his preseason play. But yeah, I mean, I did give some thought to taking Trevor Lawrence at 205. So it's not to say that I wouldn't have taken Lawrence at all. Um, but yeah, I think if I'd had a pick of Fields and Lawrence at 205, it would have made me hesitate quite a bit more about trading out of that pick. But I did draft Joe Burrow last year. I do have Aaron Rodgers, and the next all-star NFL quarterback, Jacob Eason, is on my roster.
Yeah,
So
sure. Jacob Eason, he's sure going to do
so
something.
so
Yeah.
I'm set for at least this year and hopefully next year at quarterback. So I can take a look at next year's quarterback class and perhaps draft a little bit more depth. But Aaron Rodgers is going to do well this year. I've got Joe Burrow. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He's got all the weapons in the world when it comes to receivers. The line is obviously a question mark, but you can't argue with the weapons that he has to pass to. And then he's got Joe Mixon out of the backfield. So offensively, I think a lot of good things could happen in Cincy if they're not a total sieve on the offensive line. So I didn't really need a quarterback there. So I actually took the opportunity to trade out of the 205 spot, and I traded back to the 209 spot, and also picked up an extra third round pick, the seventh
Oh,
pick
you
in the
mean
third
you mean
round.
you mean you mean the 209 spot that was originally my pick,
That's
and
right.
I traded out of
Originally,
209.
that was part of
So
your trade to get Brian Edwards and Damian Harris, I believe. Right? That was that pick.
yeah.
So yeah, you
So people
traded
will
that
probably be a
pick.
little mad. People would be a little mad because I also threw Thielen in there, but um,
Well, you gotta you
Thielen's
gotta
this is Thielen's last year, and I felt like I needed to get rid of him. I have high hopes for Edwards. I had high hopes before, you know, social media sort of exploded about like, oh, the comparison that he's Devontae Adams, he's some Randy Moss. I always liked him. So when I had an opportunity at 2.9, I figured I would like him better than any other wide receiver that was around at 209. And I kind of was proven right because I definitely would not have wanted St. Brown at that point. I would have still chosen Edwards. Um, and at that after St. Brown, like it starts to get pretty thin. Like I feel like you're really taking flyers. Like I think St. Brown has good potential, but the reason why St. Brown is so good when someone got him at 210 was just the sheer fact of like who is Goff going to throw to? Like that's the $1 million question to me. Who's he gonna throw to for the Lions? Um, so I just felt like that was more of a situation pick. Like he was just in a good spot.
Yeah, so we'll actually come back to Amon-Ra St. Brown here in a little bit, but continuing down the board, 205, so 204, Rondale Moore goes,
Another undersized.
Another undersized receiver. Yep. So continuing with that theme. And, you have to say, if he had fallen to me at 205, would I have taken him? No, I wouldn't have. My wide receiver situation is pretty decent. My real big needs were defensively, so picking up some linebacker depth, and then I needed some edge rushers, and I really need running backs, but I took Javonte Williams, and after that, there really wasn't much to pick from at least where I was going to be at 205. So Trevor Lawrence goes at 205 after the trade, and then Zach Wilson at 206. Trey Lance at 207, and then Kadarius Toney at 208. So I think that was a little bit surprising for me. I thought maybe
You didn't like Toney?
It's not that I don't like him. It's just, again, where are the needs and where are the best players? We're really down the line here on that list of wide receivers. So it's not that I don't like him. It's just that at this point, do we start taking, the top few out of the defensive core? I was kind of curious, when are we going to start seeing someone like Micah Parsons go? And thankfully, he didn't go before 209. I know you have said before, we talked about this before, you said that was probably a little bit high. I probably could have got him at 305, somewhere in the third round. But here's my philosophy, okay? So we're getting into the fantasy football philosophy. I needed him. I wanted him. I needed him. I took him. Why wait if, when I look at the board, I don't see a player that I really think is going to help my team in the next, season, 2-3 seasons of Dynasty, who is really a lock, right? I can take a flyer on someone. I could have taken a flyer on Kadarius Toney. I could have taken one of the quarterbacks, even though I don't really need a quarterback. Look, I can only play one quarterback at a time. Why am I going to draft? I've got Aaron Rodgers. I've got Joe Burrow. I'm set for this year. I can draft out of next year's class for a quarterback. You can only play, I think we're looking at, 3 to 5 wide receivers in our league. Okay, I've got 4 really solid receivers, and I've got more than enough to fill that 5th spot should I choose to play 5 receivers, but I'm probably not going to. I'm probably going to play, 3 or 4 running backs, and so I've got a few guys set there. So I'm looking at how many guys am I going to play week to week. There's no reason for me to take Toney. I'm not going to play him most weeks. Unless he explodes and becomes one of the top receivers, I'm not playing the guy. So there's no reason for me to take him. He's not going to fit into my roster. Micah Parsons will absolutely fit into my roster, especially if he's one of the top linebackers in the league. I've got Jalen Smith on my team, so you could kind of think of this as replacing any lost productivity that Jalen Smith might face if he loses his spot, or if they move Micah Parsons around. Leighton Vander Esch is on his way out the door in Dallas. This is probably his last year there. So, a lot of upside for Micah Parsons. So I just decided, you know what? He's the guy I want to take. I did give some thought to taking Amon-Ra St. Brown at this point, because he's got a pretty clear path to being one of the top 2 receivers in Detroit, maybe even the number 1 receiver. Like you said, who's Jared Goff throwing to? But for me, it was just about taking the guy I know I want, who I know is going to be productive for a good while to come, and not taking the risk that he's not going to fall back down to 305. And to that point, Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously goes at the 10th pick in the 2nd round. Then we start getting into the 3rd round, and we're really digging deep for these guys. We've got Josh Palmer going, Chuba Hubbard going, and then here we go. We start seeing some linebackers go, right? So at 303 and 304, we've got linebackers going. So if we look at that theme, I know you said I probably could have waited on taking Micah Parsons, but if you have Micah Parsons as your number 1 linebacker, he would have gone at 303. So now he's not there at 305. That doesn't mean I can't get a great linebacker at 305, but hey, I've got the guy I wanted, and now here I am sitting at 305, and I can take someone else who fits one of my big needs, and that's going to be Kwity Paye, okay? Filling in that defensive edge. So I need some edge here. And let me tell you, I love this guy. Not just that I need him as a great fantasy football player. I love the guy's story, and it's going to be great to watch this guy play football and root for him, not just because I'm racking up fantasy points, but it's just a great story. For anybody that doesn't know anything about Kwity Paye, I definitely encourage you to go check out some of the documentaries. You can find him on YouTube. Check out his story. It's just fantastic. He's a guy you love to root for. So we are now at 305. This is going to be my pick here And when you really look at this, and I know we're just looking at the My Fantasy League rankings here. These are stock rankings. These are not my rankings, but I don't really need extra linebackers at this point. I'm pretty well set. So he's actually the next highest ranked rookie as it stands. So we're definitely getting into the defensive guys here. So this is for me. It's pretty much a no-brainer. So Quiddy Pay goes at 305, and with that, you are now on the clock at 306. So I know you're kind of agonizing here. You aren't 100% set, at least last time we were talking about this. So where are you sitting? What are you thinking?
So just to backtrack, the reason why I think there was a defensive run now, per se, on linebackers is because you drafted Micah Parsons.
So you're
Once
blaming
that
me
happened,
for kicking off the run.
well, it's no different than when in the second round Justin Fields went, and if you notice, Justin Fields went, then Trevor Lawrence went, and then the same guy that picked Trevor Lawrence surprisingly picked Trey Lance, which is the guy that I liked out of everyone this year in the QB class. He, I just think that he would be great for fantasy purposes, whether it be scrambling for run and then and throwing the ball. I just think he has a good head on his shoulder. He definitely wants to make sure that he excels at this point. So I definitely think he would have been my pick, but I have Justin Herbert, so I don't think I'm going to go anywhere with that. And I do have Derek Carr and Jared Goff just as backups. I was a little surprised about the guy that picked Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence because he now has like six quarterbacks on his roster. Now I want to add that we do have massive rosters, so that is definitely an option for him to be able to hold that many. I just don't see the point. It's just wasted space to me. I think for the most part, if you're doing this type of league, you need to hold on to flyer running backs and potential wide receivers because I think those are the biggest trade chips in the league. It's rare that you see a defensive player get traded. I am literally shocked that Chris did a trade last year for a linebacker. It still boggles my mind.
So that trade was Baker Mayfield for Jalen Smith. But you
Yeah,
have
and
to understand.
I still disagree. I still disagree with that pick to this day. But
Well, the longevity of it doesn't seem to be playing out. But you have to understand, I inherited a pretty bad team. I needed some linebackers. That was a position I was never going to win that position battle any given week. So it was definitely filling a need. I had Aaron Rodgers at the time. I was looking toward drafting, Joe Burrow in the coming year. So I had a little bit of excess at quarterback. So these are things you gotta make them work. Like I said, you can only play one quarterback any given week. I'm playing Aaron Rodgers every week. I'm looking at drafting Joe Burrow as my quarterback of the future. I'm probably playing him every week. Why is Baker sitting on my bench, right? I'm probably not going to be playing, that many matchups, swapping between Baker and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to be my guy every week, week in and week out. And so, I'm not keeping Baker just to fill in on a bye week when I can throw in, any other quarterback. So I had to make the move. I thought it was good. The longevity doesn't seem to be playing out the way that I'd hoped it would, but it did work out last season. I mean, Jalen Smith was great. So
yeah, but you never had the team that was gonna compete for the championship. So
that's true.
So back to like my pick. It's interesting. So when I sort of look at a pick, I try to see. I also pick at 3-9 here, so I kind of want to see. My logic is I got to see who's behind me. Well, Chris is behind me, for one. So I feel like I need to be kind of careful on what my train of thought is because he could just snag whoever I'm looking at 3-9. But then we also have someone at 3-8, and just a little back history. That guy always likes to take the guy that I want. He did it this year. He took Bateman. He somehow, when our league was a bunch of tacos, Miles Sanders somehow fell to like the 8th pick. And I thought I was going to get gifted Miles Sanders, and then he took Miles Sanders. Like he basically, he's always behind me, in front of me, and he always takes the guy I want. That's basically that story. Maybe Chris doesn't realize that because he hasn't been in the league for as long as I have, but so I'm not going to take the philosophy that Chris has. I am not going to go defense here. I think defense is important, but I think my defense is okay. I have 3 solid guys at DE that I feel confident going into this year. Do I? And I don't feel that confident with the edge guys this year. There's no one that blows me away. If I was trying to do a move like that, I would have did that last year with Chase Young. I feel like Chase Young would have been like a great pick to have and hold on to for the entire dynasty. Linebacker, I'm pretty set on that. Safety, I'm pretty set on that. So then that leaves me in the same position that I've always in. I'm looking for a running back or wide receiver. And you start to think of like what type of options do you have? And kind of where I'm stuck with is like, do I want to get Dwamid Brown from Washington? Do I want to get Dwayne Eskridge, which is another smaller size wide receiver that's very quick? Do I want to get him from Seattle? Eskridge is a very interesting option just because he is different than Metcalf and Lockett. I think he could be a good outlet for Russell, but I'm still not sold on that. So, and you have Amari Rodgers. Amari Rodgers would have been great, but then Randall Cobb came back in the picture, and we all know that Aaron Rodgers loves Randall Cobb. So now I'm basically stuck, which is why it took me 14 hours last time to pick Elijah Moore, by the way.
Well,
So
I mean, there's not a lot for you there. We're not looking at any more potential RB1s unless you think something's going to happen to Miles Sanders. You've got Kenneth Gainwell.
yeah, but I never trust the Eagles like that.
That's a good strategy. That's a good strategy.
So
Yeah, I share your concerns about, you know, I'm always a little concerned about undersized receivers. You kind of got to prove it to me. Amari Rodgers, you just don't know what's going to happen there. Randall Cobb's back, and the chemistry building with Aaron Rodgers is probably going to take a little while. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play again after this season, what's the situation like with Jordan Love? We haven't really gotten to see anything there, so you don't know Amari Rodgers' long-term outlook. So I draft after you. I'm gonna probably be stretching pretty well with my pick, but I've got a fairly good reason for it. So very interested to see who you take here.
you're gonna be stretching. Oh
I'm gonna
man,
be stretching big. I've got quite a few picks left, so I pick at 307 just after you take 306, and then I'm on the clock again at 405, 409, and then 505. So I'm stretching here, and I still got 3 picks after this. So I'm gonna stretch, and I'm gonna take I think one of the guys who I think has a potential to be a number 1 guy at the position. And once I
yes.
get
What
past
position
that,
is that?
once I
What
get
position
past
is that?
that, we'll see who's on the board. So, but nothing can happen until you take you make your
Oh,
pick.
oh, so
So
you can't tell me what position, huh? Okay, okay, all right. So I'm gonna kind of go through my logic right now. It's basically down to Brown. Um, I like him in Washington. Could he carve out a thing? I don't know. That's kind of like a let's sit. I feel like when you start to get in the third round, you're taking flyers. You're hoping that these guys pan out. They might not be like guys that succeed this year, but it's something that since we have a very deep roster, you hold on these guys and hope that year 2, year 3 is when they start to break out. So I could go Brown, who could give some impact this year actually, but he is a deep threat type guy, and I don't. That's a boom and bust player, and I'm not a boom or bust player. Like I like we've been over this. I like possession guys. I like guys that are going to catch 8 to 10 passes potentially in a game. Because we're in a PPR league, so I get a 1 point per reception. So then that also kind of leaves basically what it's left with is running backs is potential handcuffs. So I could go like Hubbard and sort of handcuffed to CMC, but I don't like him. So I'm not going to go Hubbard. Like I'm just going through my logic here. So I'm still with like thinking of Brown, and then that leaves other 2 running backs that I'm thinking of. And that's Stevenson from the Patriots, which yes, I drafted Damian Harris and I believe in him, but as soon as I draft him, then Stevenson comes out of nowhere and starts tearing up in preseason. So I'm wondering now, should I use one of these 3rd round picks to sort of cover my investment that I made on Harris? So if Harris doesn't pan out, at least I have Stevenson. So I'm sort of like trying to block off that because I don't believe in Sony Michelle. I don't know how you feel about Sony Michelle, Chris, but I have no faith. Yeah.
My mic is muted. No, I share that concern. I think for that reason, that's why I was kind of a fan of your trade and getting Damian Harris, because I think that Damian Harris can really be the guy. And it's been a while since we've seen somebody be the guy in New England, but I
No, well,
think
you'll
he's
see
got a
someone be
shot
a
at it.
guy. They'll be a guy for a year, and then a new running back will be the guy for the year. But I was just hoping that Harris would be the guy for this year. That was kind of my logic. But I think I'm going to go with my gut here, and I am also going to um, take a guy that probably is going too soon. I also own Eckler for the Chargers, and how I feel about Eckler is that he kind of hurt me last year because he was out for more than half the year. And while I have some decent running backs, I don't have a huge amount of depth. So I kind of want to cover my bases, and I think Roundtree has a great chance to sort of solidify that backup role because I don't think Justin Jackson's anything. I also hold Joshua Kelly, so I'm just hedging my bets even more, but he disappointed greatly when he tried to take over the role for Eckler. So I am for sure probably right now going to go and draft Roundtree, but I just have to figure out how to do it first because I forget this every time. So you have to bear with me for a second. Do you have any thoughts, Chris, on
I
what I'm
like
doing
it.
right here?
I like it. I like
Why
it,
why
and
do you like this?
I like it. You made a great point about Eckler and his health, and no one else in Los Angeles for the Chargers has really been able to pan out. Um, Josh Kelly, obviously last year there was a lot of hype early on, and then that really didn't pan out when he had an opportunity to take over the starting job when Eckler went down. And I think that's really telling is that when Eckler went down with injury, there was no clear cut guy for all the hype that they had who could take over that spot. And it's not just Eckler's health that you have to worry about, but is Austin Eckler really going to be the same Austin Eckler for the next few years? I don't think he is, and so I think that's actually a great pick. I think Ramondre Stevenson would have been a good pick as well. I do like Damian Harris. Like I said, I think he could be the guy in New England. But should something happen to him, or should he not pan out the way that we thought, Ramondre Stevenson is kind of a future handcuff in a way. Not a handcuff that, if something goes wrong with the guy, if a guy goes down with injury, but a handcuff in the sense that maybe, this is going to be the season where Damian Harris can show whether he can be the guy or not. And you know, if I'm wrong about him, and I don't think I am, but if
Yeah,
I
well,
am
here's
wrong
the
about
thing.
him, that's a good handcuff. But I
I,
I do like Roundtree. I think that's actually a good pick, and I don't really think it's as much of a stretch as a lot of people might think. I mean, if you look at certain ranking boards, he's down there pretty far. But if you look at who's between him and where we're sitting right now, I don't think it's actually as big of a stretch as some people might think it is.
at this point, like I'm going for what fits my team now. So for round one and round two, I usually go who is the best available and who do I think will be the best one. When I start getting into rounds three, four, and five of this league, that's when you start thinking of defensive players. And if you don't want to touch defense, then you're looking at guys that will fit your roster. And I want a Roundtree to protect basically what is one of my RB1s. My other RB1 is, as you can tell from my name, it is Zeke, and I hope he gets fed this year. But if you must know, I have Tony Pollard on my team too. I am literally trying to handcuff my RB1s because we only have to play two. I have a very stacked wide receiver load, so I will just run. What can I run? Five wide receivers. I will run five wide receivers this year. So that's kind of my logic. Maybe I should have went Stevenson first, but I don't know. For some reason, I just like Roundtree. Like Stevenson's a big back, and when I think of a big back, I think of LeGarrette Blunt, and I don't know how successful that's going to be for a long term career. But Roundtree was drafted in the sixth round. No one's really had much hype for him, but in his first preseason game, he actually seemed to impress a little bit. So that made me want to take a chance on him. So, but I guess
Yeah,
it's
I
your pick
like it.
now.
I
So.
like it. I'm looking at we're looking at Fantasy Pros here, looking at their their rookie rankings, and they have Larry Roundtree down at 42 as far as rookie rankings. So let's look at who's above Larry Roundtree. They've got Gainwell at 20, who right now in our league is the highest ranked remaining available rookie. And so other running backs, Elijah Mitchell, Ramondre Stevenson, Javian Hawkins. Okay, this is where we start getting absolutely absurd. Javian Hawkins, there's no universe where Javian Hawkins should be rated above Larry Roundtree. Honestly, I wouldn't put Javian Hawkins above Jarrett Patterson. He's also above guys like
Well, you know
Marquez
why he's above.
Stevenson.
You know why he's above?
There's
It's
no
because
one
Mike
in
Davis is
Atlanta.
RB1. Yeah, he is.
There's no one in
Which
Atlanta, but that, how quickly that could change. I mean, I don't care. The guy's just not that good of a running back. He can be the
I just don't
RB1.
think
Mike Davis isn't a good running back. He's going to come into the season as an RB1, but you think I'm drafting Mike Davis anywhere in the first 6 rounds of a redraft league? No shot. Now we start getting down into, the lower drafts, and yeah, maybe I'll snag him because he's going to come into the season as a 1. But I think, when you start looking at some of the guys that are ranked above Larry Roundtree, I really disagree with some of these. I think he's probably going to start rising on some people's rankings. His ADP is probably rising as we speak. So I like it. I'm with you on that one. So I wouldn't say that you're feeling like you're stretching too much.
I just want to let you know, ADP wise, Mike Davis is going in the 6th round. So
fair enough. That's not.
I feel like that sounds about right for me for Mike Davis. So
I suspect that might start rising. We'll see what happens in preseason. Maybe Javian Hawkins comes in and just explodes, and people think he's going to be the number 1, and Mike Davis falls off a cliff. We'll see. But I am now on the board.
I mean, Hawkins is small though. You have to remember, Hawkins. I just don't think he can carry the load to just be the clear RB1. But if they use him a lot, kind of like how Eckler has been utilized, but I still think he'd get broken in half. But that's just my personal opinion.
So I'm on the clock at 307 now, and you've gone over a lot of the guys who were under consideration in this range. You've made a lot of great points. It's fantastic that I have the 307 pick, and I get to hear you tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't take this guy or I shouldn't take this guy when you were up at 306. So I appreciate that. I love the help. We should definitely do this more often. So I'm looking at guys who I might remotely consider. And you talk about Dwayne Eskridge. I think he's in a good spot in Seattle. But again, I've talked about, when I take a receiver, I like the prototypical big receivers. You got to show me something special if you're not going to be, a big lanky receiver.
You mean Elijah Moore?
No, I'm looking at who I think is.
No, but I'm saying Elijah Moore is someone special, which is
yeah. Elijah Moore, that guy's flashing some good stuff. So yeah, I would have taken Elijah Moore when he was taken or earlier if he fell to me. We got Mac Jones still on the board, everybody's favorite physical specimen. But I don't.
Which I hope he starts sooner than later, because the sooner he starts, the more that helps the Harris pick.
Yeah, that's true.
But Cam Newton's doing a really good preseason, so that's not helpful.
And I'm not in desperate need of a quarterback. I do need quarterback depth, so let me be clear. Right now, I'm rolling with 3 quarterbacks. I've got Jacob Eason, who's doing me no good, probably isn't actually going to do me any good past potentially the first couple weeks of the season, should he win out that starting job over Sam Ehlinger while Wentz is down. We're looking at Amari Rodgers, but we've kind of gone over that. I would take Amari Rodgers if Aaron Rodgers were going to be in Green Bay for a few more years, and if Aaron Rodgers were younger than he is. But he's not, and he's not. And I don't know what the situation is going to be like at quarterback in Green Bay, next season, let alone the season after that. So I'm a little iffy on Amari Rodgers. He may stick around for a while anyway. Who knows? Maybe he's there at 305. I don't think I'm going to take him at 305 if he, or at 405 if he's still there. Looking at Nico Collins, but that's just a nightmarish situation in Houston, so I want nothing to do with that. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm definitely considering that. I think he's probably going to be gone before my next pick. And I'm looking at the board, and there's really no one there that sort of no one that really does it for me. There's definitely some guys that I think are good picks as flyers in the next few rounds. And let me be clear, after this pick, I'm just taking flyers on guys. I'm not looking at positional players. I'm taking flyers. But right now, this is a flyer, so it falls into that category. But this one's also for me a positional pick. This is a need pick. This is something that I have zero depth at. Because right now at the tight end position, I'm rolling with Noah Fant, which is a great option. We'll see how the quarterback battle plays out in Denver and how that
Oh, you're
affects
going Pat. Oh, you're going
his.
Pat.
But
Yeah, you're going Pat.
next up,
So
I've got Hayden Hurst, and Hayden Hurst, is we know is at this point pretty much a useless tight end. So we saw some big flashes in the last preseason game. I think it was last night, the night before. Pat Fryermuth snagging 2 touchdown passes in the preseason game. And yeah, so maybe there's a little bit of recency bias. Eric Ebron is in Pittsburgh. He's going to be ahead of Pat on the depth chart. But how long does that stay the case? How much more does Eric Ebron have as a tight end 1? So for me, I got to do it. I got to come over here, and I got to fill up that position. I got to get myself some depth, and I got to draft the guy who I think could be a tight end 1 in short order in Pittsburgh.
I don't know if he'll be tight end 1 year 1, but
not necessarily year 1, but this is a dynasty draft. Okay, I do have
Yeah.
Noah Fant. Noah Fant's going to be my tight end 1. Rolling through this season, Hayden Hurst is probably droppable at this point, but like you said, we've got pretty large rosters, so I'll let him hang on. I'll give him a bench spot for at least the first few weeks of the season. But right now, I got to fill up that tight end spot, and I got to go with the top remaining tight end by a pretty long shot in our league, and that's Pat Fryermuth. So it is done, and so we've made our 3 picks back to back to back, and so now we've got one guy we're waiting on, and then you're back up at 309, but it's going to be a while before his timer expires. Who knows how long he's going to take.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I can just go with the same people I just talked about. I could maybe go Brown for Washington if I want to go wide receiver again, or if I want to I can just try to go Stevenson, and Stevenson's still there. That is kind of the route I'm going. I'm not going to go defense. There are some guys that I know will not make it, won't get drafted, and I will be probably picking them up throughout the year. That's how I kind of pick up my defensive players.
Yeah,
there's a couple. There's a couple there's for sure one linebacker that's on my radar that I can't talk to you about because.
Well, you pick before I pick. You pick in one more pick.
No, but I'm not drafting a linebacker.
Okay.
I'm waiting to the waiting to the end of the
rest
draft,
assured,
and then I'm going to pick them up. So
I have, what are we looking at? Quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7 picks between now and my next pick. So things may change, but I'm not planning on going defense. Anybody who's seen my roster, I'm overflowing with defensive backs right now. I think I'm pretty set at linebacker position. I've got Devin White. I've got Jalen Smith. I just drafted Micah Parsons. I'm probably only going to be playing 2 linebackers as starters anyway, so I think I'm set there from a starter perspective. I definitely don't need any more corners or safeties. So I think for the rest of this draft, I'm taking flyers on offensive players. I might, if he's still there, maybe I snag Mac Jones if he's still hanging around at 405. I don't think that I think he's probably got a little bit more value than most of the running backs and receivers that are on the board right now, and particularly who are going to be on the board when I pick again at 405. So maybe if Mac Jones is still sitting there at 405, I'll pad my quarterbacks, and at that point, hey, maybe I don't have to worry about snagging a quarterback out of next year's rookie class, and I can focus on getting some of the potential studs, depending on how deep our rookie class is next year. But
we all know it's just the 4th and 5th round is, my thoughts to the 4th and 5th round.
You're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're already rolling the dice at 3. I mean, truth be told, you're rolling the dice even in the first round. Um, like, yeah, these guys have potential, but there's been plenty of guys that I've drafted in the first round and they've been duds. A couple years ago, drafted Devin Singletary. Look at where he's at now. Splitting time with Zach Moss. Where's that going to get me? Nowhere. So I've been burned by the late first round running back, and maybe that's why you see me go wide receiver then. Um, maybe if I kind of have a losing season, it might be nice to be able to have the options to pick 1 through 5, but I don't know. We'll see. Um,
Yeah. Well, we'll see indeed, but you'll probably be up there. Your team's pretty solid, so you're probably picking pretty low again. I may be picking low. Hopefully, I think I've done a good job inheriting this team and kind of patching it up, but we'll see. But all right.
yeah, you shouldn't have finished as high as you did. So
I finished I think just outside of the playoffs, and I think that
yeah,
happened
yeah,
something like the
yeah.
last week before uh, playoffs. So yeah, I'm proud with how I turned this team around, and this is I think the first year where my input's really going to matter. I mean, last year I did what I could in the draft last year. I got DeAndre Swift in the first round last year, and trying to patch this team up. But I still had to ride with the majority of the team that I inherited. So I think this is the first year that you should be able to judge me for my team's performance. Last year I didn't shoulder all the blame, but this year if I tank, you can blame me. I've made a lot of moves. I've really taken a knife, hot knife through butter when it comes to this team, and sliced it up.
I mean, you inherited a team that had won the league a few years before, with on the backs of Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley, which
Who
was
are
like
now
the
free
foundation.
agents and doing me
Yes.
no good and didn't do me any
So
good last year. So, well,
yeah,
Gurley was a decent contributor.
I mean, and that
Bell
sort of
not so
goes
much,
back to
but
me trading Adam Thielen this year. I wanted to get something for him because you still have, like, first off, you couldn't trade Le'Veon Bell if you wanted to
yeah,
last year, but you could have traded Todd Gurley, and you still didn't do it. So, and
I thought
now
about it.
Todd Gurley is just going to sit there. Like, maybe he clings onto a team. I don't know, but we know the shelf life of an NFL running back. It's not very high, so, or long for that matter.
Yeah,
You
we'll see.
probably could have got a nice second round, maybe a third round pick for him. It would have been better than nothing, right?
Hindsight's 2020.
Mm, okay.
You can't be right on every single one of them. I've got a pretty good track record. I wanted to take a swing. I know a lot of people said, look, you got no shot at the playoffs. You just need to trade away everyone. And, there's a lot of merit to that argument. But I wanted to take a swing at it, man. I mean, if I could go down, with punching and swinging, cause a few bloody noses on my way out of the first round of the playoffs, I was going to do it. So I held on to Gurley, I think, with that in mind. And it didn't work out the way that I wanted to. But I think this year, yeah, I've definitely got to dump those guys. They may just be complete drops depending on what happens. Um, but who knows? I mean, maybe Gurley finds his way to being a handcuff for somebody when they go down, in the middle of the season. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I think I'm feeling pretty good about this draft so far, though. I would have liked to get one of the guys in the top four, but it didn't happen. But we'll see. Javonte Williams, first pick, so hopefully that pans out for me. But that
Oh
is
yeah, Matt
our
Ellington.
that's our third round. We're coming up on the end of that, so we'll see. Um, we'll see what happens at 308, and then we'll see what you do at 309. But
I think we know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna pick one of the guys that I talked about earlier. Probably Stevenson. Um,
handcuff that's a stack and a handcuff. Look at that, handcuffing and stacking simultaneously.
well, I mean, third rounds flyers. I think my wide receiver situation is really good. I mean, I have Justin Jefferson. I have DeAndre Hopkins. I have Keenan Allen. Like, that's a three-headed monster in my opinion. I also have Cooper Cup, who I think always been pretty solid, but I think he'll be even better this year with Matt Stafford. So that's four guys right there. I'm hoping that DJ Shark bounces back now with Trevor Lawrence. He actually has a quarterback that can throw to him. I'm hoping Debo Samuel's a little healthier this year because I think he has great potential. He's definitely a playmaker for the 49ers. So I think I have a lot of options. I mean, I even still have Antonio Brown on this team. And I think he played very well near the end of the season. I think he actually might be a get pretty solid this year. So when it comes to wide receivers, I'm pretty set. I mean, I also have Elijah Moore. I have Denzel Mims, like I mentioned. So I guess that's why I'm stacking running back right now. I'm just trying to hope that I hit something, so I make sure I have 2 or 3 guys I can play every week. That's the key. So
Fair enough. We'll see how that pans out, but we'll be back probably in a week or so, and we'll recap the last few rounds of this draft, and then we're gonna start into. I think we should start looking at our rankings for redraft. We'll look at some positional rankings for redraft, and I've really got to get into doing some mock drafts, man. I haven't done a mock draft for redraft yet. I draft in about 2 weeks for my league, and I need some practice. I need to put my draft strategy to the test. So maybe we'll be back in about a week, and we'll be looking at the flyers that went in the late rounds here, and then start looking at our redraft strategies. So
sounds good.
all right, we'll see you folks in a week.
Well, hold on. Does anyone has any questions for us? They're happy to send us on what was it, Twitter?
Yeah,
What's our Twitter name?
Twitter.
Just put it in the chat.
We are
Just
at
put it in
the
the chat.
Fantasy Fed. So I'll put that Fantasy Fed going in the chat. So hit us up on Twitter. Send us any questions. If you've already drafted, send us any thoughts you have about your draft, and
Any trade options, you let us know.
yeah.
I don't like for people to get fleeced in trades. That happened in our league yesterday, and I'm still pissed about it. So I will make sure you do not get laced. Okay.
Yeah, definitely make sure that you get your money's worth for any trade. And early on in the season is when you can maybe get some guys at a lower value if you didn't get a chance to draft them in the late rounds and somebody else did. Maybe you can get good value, or maybe you can sell high on a guy that maybe we think it was drafted a little too early, and you can maybe get some more for him. But things are really going to start moving fast. Those waiver wires are going to be on fire the first few weeks of the season. So we're only a few weeks away. So hit us up on Twitter, send us any questions, and then we'll answer those throughout the season.
All right, sounds good.
All
So
right.
until next week.
Until next week.